Oh, sorry. He likes to take care of me. He cleans my clothes, and I clean his clothes. It's a bro thing. So we learned from that review with our sheriff that there are a number of items that are recommended improvements that we are probably going to get commented on by the state that they would like to see us do better with recommendations. Their expectation, the expectation of the sheriff's office is that maybe 10 years or so, more or less, away, those recommendations may become requirements. So here's a jail, the part of the courthouse, that is made out of very thick concrete that would be hard to just modify easily. For example, we just modified 2 jail doors a couple of years ago to make them ADA accessible, wheelchair accessible under the ADA, and it costs close to $50,000 to do those 2 doors. So it's a very expensive fix. It may be possible that in 10 years or so, Latah County residents need to think about replacing the jail, or building a new jail, or something like that. So that's something that may come our way. It's a long-term planning issue, but 10 years isn't that far away, and it may be longer, but it may not be. So it's just something to think about. And likely the 3 of us, well, the 3 of us may still be here in 10 years, but who knows? It's up to you all whether or not we're there. So, it's something that we need to plan on. A couple other things. Kathy mentioned she's on some other boards. One of those boards is the Behavioral Health Board. I'm also on the Behavioral Health Board. I'm the vice chair of the Behavioral Health Board currently. And we do a lot of work in our region to help people with various illnesses, various drug abuse issues. Some of you know that the state of Idaho has a very high per capita suicide rate. We are number 5 in the nation, and the highest region in the state of Idaho, the highest per capita region in the state of Idaho is this north central area, these 5 counties of Latah, Lewis, Clearwater, Nez Perce, and Idaho counties. So we take it, the commissioners take it very seriously, the legislators from this area take it very seriously. We will be talking about it with our legislators next week when we are in Boise. We take it so seriously that you may have noticed in the last couple of weeks, our legislators insisted that the Millennium Fund put money forward for the recovery centers within our region. And so, it's on to JFAC. We've got a lot of people talking with JFAC to try to get this funded. I hate using the word try because it leaves room for out, but to get it funded, right? We need to get this. We need the recovery centers to continue to get support. Latah County is a model county in the state of Idaho for funding its recovery center. It's the only outside agency in Latah County that it's got increased funding for this fiscal year over last fiscal year. We increased it by $5,000. And we continue to want to make sure that they succeed. One of the other things that we've managed to get funded in the last legislature is what we're calling the Rural Crisis Response or Rural Crisis Network, which is a decentralized set of 5 locations in these 5 counties to function like a unified crisis center. So we are working with all 5 hospitals within the region. We're working with the recovery centers in Lewiston and Moscow, and a series of various counseling agencies as well to help people that are currently experiencing crisis be able to come down and be stabilized. So in the state of Idaho, we have crisis centers in Idaho Falls, just started in Boise, one in Kootenai County that we've visited. And they work really well in larger cities to have one place in a region, but we are saying, our region is saying to the state, we want to have a decentralized thing so we can work better that way. We are working to make that happen, and it's a lot of steps, but we're getting close to getting that off the ground. And it's because of the recovery centers doing so well that we'll be able to work well with this. And then the last thing I wanted to mention before we go into more questions is I'm the co-chair for the Palouse Knowledge Corridor, which is another economic development organization. There are several economic development organizations that have different pieces of the puzzle. And the piece that we're working on is a lot of training of people who are entrepreneurs and wanting to start businesses within these two counties of Latah and Whitman County. And so we're doing a lot of really good work to help people that want to start businesses or have started businesses and need more training.
Repeat the name again.
Palouse Knowledge Corridor. So the concept behind that, when I was on the Moscow City Council and I was just on and we were talking about it, people kept saying PKC, 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 and I kept thinking they were referring to the Turkish Communist Party, which is and so it didn't make any sense to me, and the whole point of the name Palouse Knowledge Corridor is we're trying to put a name to the region so that the rest of the world are educated about what this place is. So we know what the research triangle is, right? Anybody in this room will be able to answer where the research triangle is, at least what state it is. It's North Carolina, it's Durham, Raleigh, and what's the other city? What's one of those? Raleigh, Durham, yeah, so it's that area. That's the research triangle. Everybody knows what the research triangle, Chapel Hill. Everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows what Silicon Valley is, that part of California. The idea of the name Palouse Knowledge Corridor is to give a name to this region that helps people from the outside be able to look in and then learn, oh, these are the two closest state universities in the United States. Oh, there's all this cool stuff happening. We're not talking about the road between Pullman and Moscow. We're talking about this region of Whitman and Latah County, the Palouse Knowledge Corridor. And so working with the economic development organizations that are currently known as the PEP, or the Partnership for Economic Prosperity, and SOWEDO, which is the Southeast Washington Economic Development Association. So that's the piece that we're talking about. Anyway, I'm going to stop talking because as chair I can go on too long, and we don't want that. So, so questions for any of the three of us. I'll start with you first.
Given that you have a drug problem in the area and a lot of it has to do with mental health issues that people are trying to self-medicate on,
Yeah.
is there enough psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors in the area to mitigate that?
I'll partially answer that. So the University of Idaho and Whitman Medical Center both just opened up contracts and just hired people in, 2 new psychiatrists that are in this area. I would say the short answer is no, we don't have enough yet, but we are working towards that. And so these projects that we're doing help to attract professionals that want to work here. So we're moving in that direction.
I wanted to add a little bit to what Tom said too about the crisis centers, because I think better in pictures than I do necessarily in words, and so I want to kind of create a picture of what this crisis center looks like. So if somebody comes into the ER and they've got a mental health crisis or a drug crisis, something like that, they would go through, in the ER at Whitman, they would get a medical assessment to make sure that they're medically stable, and then via telehealth, they would get a behavioral health assessment to make sure that they're not a risk to themselves or others. And those would be the first 2 things that would get done when somebody comes in there. Then they would be, if they were both medically stable and behaviorally stable enough that we knew that they weren't going to off themselves or others, they would then go into the crisis center. And what we're talking about, that's actually a physical place. The crisis center is a physical place where a person can go, get access to the resources that are in the community, such as recovery center classes, the counseling that you talked about, psychiatrists, et cetera, the affordable housing. They 24 to 48-hour place where they can basically be stable, be warm, be around supportive people. They will actually be housed at the recovery center here, and in different communities, those are different sites. Then they get tapped into the recovery center and the ongoing programs that exist. With the idea being sort of the pet phrase that I keep hearing is it's crisis center for a day, and then recovery center for a lifetime.
Victoria.
Yeah, so I haven't heard, do we know why Idaho has a high suicide, one of the fifth high suicide rate, and why do the 5 counties have low? Why are they so?
So it's per capita, sorry.
Sunshine. Didn't you
Sunshine.
wake up this morning?
Kathy, yeah, look at their son. I think there are probably a number of different reasons. It's probably economic prosperity. As you know, there are a lot of contributing factors. There's drugs. There's
We're that much
how well
worse
people.
up here.
I guess I don't know. I mean, I think that there's a lot there. There's so few resources put towards mental health care that there are a lot of things we don't know.
So that's why we need that.
Exactly. I mean, there are amazing volunteers working on this stuff here, but that's part of the problem, is there are a lot of volunteers, right? We don't put enough into these resources. The fact that we didn't expand Medicaid, that people don't have access to medical care readily, that we have a gap population in Idaho of somewhere between 62 and 78,000 people. I mean, the fact that we all voted in Idaho to expand Medicaid, and let's hope it gets funded properly, will be the first step to taking care of this issue. It's the foundation of the building of medical care and mental health care in the state, is making sure that people have good, consistent access to health care. I mean, all 3 of us have advocated very strongly for that to take place, and it did, and let's make sure, and we will echo that again next week when we're down there. There's a rally on Monday that we're going to, and then we just will be continuing to talk to people to make sure it gets funded. That's the first thing, but, yeah.
I was wondering, is there any preventive program, like at high school or middle school, or, because if we catch them at the university, it's already better than never, but
Yeah, and there is
there's only 2 counselors, right? per-
Yeah, and there is a nonprofit organization. It was part of Latah County. The funding ran out from the prevention grant that they had. LCYC Latah County Youth Advocacy Council has spun off as a separate nonprofit organization, and they're continuing to look for more money, and I suspect it will continue to attract funding over time. So that does exist as a preventative organization.